So Silvio, I'd like to start, you have a great life story, and I think folks should sort of hear it. You were born in Rome, grew up in Belgium, then studied at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, worked at Dow Chemical, and then went to a small business school in Boston known as Harvard as a Fulbright scholar, by the way, which is an accomplishment. Now, 90% of your class at Harvard Business School went into management consulting and investment banking, where they became my clients. But you went in a different direction. Now, it's my understanding that you initially turned down a job at Schindler. And could you tell us about the phone call from Mr. Schindler when he tried to persuade you to actually take the job that you had turned down?
Yes, Bob, good evening. Yes, it's a good story. It was cold winter days, was February '94, I believe. I'd just been, it was the interviewing season. I was coming towards graduation, and I had the privilege of having a few offers, but as one of the rare graduates who wanted to work in an engineering industrial company. And one of them was Schindler, and I was there getting ready to go to class early in the morning, and my wife, we were married already then, living in Alston. Campus was a bit too expensive for us, so we lived there. And she says, there is a Mr. Schindler on the phone for you. So I pick up the phone, and here was Mr. Schindler. And he said, I hear you turned down our offer. I said, yes, sir, I did. Why is that? I said, listen, you have a fine company. I really enjoyed meeting you. I'm also a Swiss graduate engineer. But frankly, I've looked at the people you have on the board, people you have on your management team, they're all Swiss. And now, it's great, it makes for a fine company, but I don't have the privilege of a Swiss passport. So since I went to business school, I hope I can have a career and have one of these jobs. So I don't think it's for me. And he said to me right away, he said, that's a mistake. I want to change this company. If you work hard and are successful, you can run this company one day.
Prophetic words. Prophetic words. One of the questions I've always had is, you think about Schindler, and it's really one of the leading elevator companies in the world. And as I understand it, in Switzerland, there are literally only 4 buildings that are taller than 100 feet. There's probably more tall buildings like in this block. How did Schindler become the world leader in elevators and escalators?
It's a great question, Bob, but this is really, it says a lot about Switzerland. Schindler indeed was founded in 1874, so think about this company about to celebrate 150 years of history. They went through industrial revolution, the transition from steam to electricity, 2 world wars, and you name it. But most importantly, they went through the cycle of urbanization. Cities were born at a time. And the founders realized that this was an extraordinary opportunity. And so it is by promoting innovation, technology, but most of all quality, which is an essential Swiss characteristic, that they managed to expand around the world. It's really a true Swiss entrepreneurship story.
Now, tell us how, as we sit here in New York City, how did elevators transform our world? It's true. Let's face it, New York City is made by great people, most of all, by an incredible country, but I like to argue that without elevators, it couldn't be what it is today. Elevators address a key aspect of cities, which is space scarcity. So people come to cities, but there is only that much space. So if you only build horizontally, you're not going to make it, unless probably you have as much space as maybe LA is probably a counterexample. Houston.
Houston is another. But in a place like New York, the only way to address that is to allow more people per square foot is to build vertically. And that's what elevators allow. That's what elevators create. They create that aspect, which now, of course, grew into much more than that. It's about quality of life.
Now, Schindler's been in existence for more than 100 years. What's the key to Schindler's success?
Now, one can look at it different ways, and I'm not going to bore you with quality, all things which are absolutely true, but I'd like to maybe offer a different perspective, which is one close to your profession, Bob, governance. Schindler is a family company. Another great example of Swiss entrepreneurship. Though we are listed on the Zurich Stock Exchange, The same family that founded Schindler in 1874 is still the majority shareholder. So the way the company is managed is not about quarterly earnings, it's not about yearly results, it's about the future, it's about preparing the company for the next generation. And there is a great study by Credit Suisse, by the way, another great Swiss company, that
Marcus covers all the banks in Switzerland.
That shows that companies with a strong family anchor shareholding have over the time much higher returns, as much as 5 percentage points. And why is that? Because they prepare for the long term. They don't work on the short term, they prepare the company for the next generation, just as this famous Patek Philippe had.
Now, people, you know, in the old days, you had like people who actually operated the elevators. And you know, now, as I understand it, your business is literally at the forefront of artificial intelligence. Tell us what like, I mean, I have my elevator now, I push a button and it tells me go to C1 and then I go up and I go down. How is the elevator business at the forefront of artificial intelligence?
I'll come to that, but perhaps the point about the lift operator. You know, there is a study by a famous Professor Bessemer, Boston University now, actually Harvard himself, and then it looked at really how many professions had been replaced by automatization. And looked at New York. There were 235 professions listed in 1953, and then he looked 50 years later how many disappeared. In fact, only one did, and it was the lift operator. And that was, of course, in New York. So, but to your question, artificial intelligence is based on data. And in our business, there is lots of data. In our company, with Schindler Elevators, we move more than 1 billion people every day. Imagine the quantity of data that is. And now, that is unique. So until now, before cloud computing, this data was blocked. It was secluded in every elevator machine room. Now with cloud connectivity, we can transfer all this data, centralize it, consolidate it, and then offer remote service, anticipate breakdowns, release people remotely. And then, of course, the old second generation is defining better products and enabling digital services within the building. So yes, artificial intelligence, you might be surprised, is one of the key features of elevator and escalators.
You know, I've been a little bit concerned recently about the fact that because of COVID, and we have an issue in our law firm of getting people back to the office. And folks think that maybe we're in a post-COVID world and people will work remotely and the cities are in big trouble. Do you agree with that sort of the pandemic is the beginning of the end of the city?
Well, like Secretary Pompeo, I'll be totally undiplomatic. I absolutely disagree with that.
Why is that?
Cities have gone through much more in history. Cities have gone through plagues. Cities have gone through war, devastation, invasion. And every time someone said this is the end of cities, and every time cities came back stronger than before. And why is that? Because cities are maybe what distinguishes our civilization from all sorts of species. Cities offer the best employment opportunities. Cities offer the best education. Cities offer, it might be counterintuitive maybe nowadays, also the best safety overall. So cities are where people come to make a living. This is the story of New York. These people come to New York for a great future. That's never going to change.
Well, my daughters are here. They come to New York for the parties.
Here we go. But still. But you see, but at the same time, there is maybe a dark side to cities, which is the aspect of quality of life and sustainability. For example, congestion, traffic, it's horrible. And equally, in terms of sustainability, cities account for more than 40% of world CO2 emissions. So if you look at the future, cities will continue to grow, but they'll have to address that. And elevators can play a huge part in this, because we can, in buildings which account within cities about more than 30% of itself, we can actually help buildings become more sustainable, and we can improve quality of life by making sure that people reach a destination faster, not only horizontally, but also vertically.
Now, when I was a young boy, we used to watch a TV show. How many people ever watched the Jetsons? Remember the Jetsons? All right, we've got some Jetsons fans here. Now, if cities are not going away, what will the elevator business look like in 50 or 100 years?
Well, there are many models on which actually we work with different schools to develop, but it's simply elevators will be more and more connected not only to the whole building, but also to the horizontal dimension. And let's think about it. Here in New York, many people live in high-rise or work or live in high-rises. The worst thing that can happen, you want to go for lunch just down to grab a sandwich, street level, and you wait 10 minutes for the lift to come. Or you just basically miss your subway because you cannot make it on time. Today, with data, this can all be seamlessly integrated. So if you say, Mr. Giuffra, you know which lift you're going to take, it will allow you to take either your cab, your car, or your subway, or even all the way to the airport. And this vertical and horizontal integration will be the future, and in cities, always more.
So what you're saying is that someday I'll be sitting with my iPhone, I say I want to go home, I push a button, it tells me to go to what elevator at what time, and everything else will all work automatically.
If you like to do so, absolutely.
With my jetpack.
With a jetpack. And by the way, think about what investment today we do. Today we have infrastructure. We invest, rightly so, billions in making sure we have faster trains. And sometimes the difference is reaching your destination a couple of minutes faster. But then people get off the train, let's say at an airport, and then they wait 5-6 minutes in line to get onto the escalator that brings you to the ramp. That's wrong. And that's thinking about integrating the whole traffic management. This is what will be the future.
Now, I think you've had many, many accomplishments in your life, and one of the ones that I think is clearly one of the most impressive is that the Harvard Business School operates off the case method, and one of the most popular case methods at Harvard, and this is a case that people study in business school in general management, is entitled, quote, Silvio Napoli at Schindler, India. Now, as I understand it, you literally showed up, got off the plane, you had a briefcase, no employees, nothing, and you built a huge business in India for Schindler. Tell us how you did that.
Well, you're being too kind. In fact, this case has become so famous, I believe, because it was absolutely transparent and truthful, describing all the mistakes that a young MBA thinking they can take the world on can make when landing with a business plan and a bag. In fact, the situation was, I landed in India in 1997 with a plan, $2 million in the bank, of which I was the only signatory. That's about trust in the company. Today it would be impossible, which was part of what I said I needed as equity to launch the company, but also my wife, 2 kids, and a third on the way. And that was in itself an adventure. And I was extremely fortunate to surround myself with people, most of them local Indians, who knew much more than I did about the elevator business, and with whom I had very open discussion about what would work or not, and the rest is history.
Now, managing a global business like Schindler, with war in the Ukraine, issues with China, supply chain disruptions, now we have inflation. What are some of the risks that you see for someone in your position as the CEO of a company that's operating literally around the world?
Well, those you mentioned are the risk, and more are coming, so key is to find them. But perhaps one key element I find which is a challenge for CEOs nowadays is how to manage in an inflationary environment. For some of us who have been in business for, let's say, more than 20 years, we used to be accustomed to that. You had to manage prices, manage cost, and be agile. Over the last 20 years, we were accustomed to the fact that, you have targets, inflation, it's going to be under control, interest rates, you know where they go. And getting people into this mindset, which is you have to be agile. There are nothing like yearly budgets. And most of all, you need to relearn to manage pricing. That seems easy, but I realize it's a mindset change, which is a huge, I think, particular challenge, because it's really a change management, cultural change to be brought about across the company.
Let me ask you just, one more question. We have a lot of young leaders in the room. We have some future young leaders. Marcus's daughters are in the room. My daughters are in the room. Could you just tell the young people here, what are some of the keys to your success?
Well, there are here incredible leaders, so I'm not in a position to teach anything, but as part of my personal experience. First of all, like the India experience, don't fear. Just sometimes the things that are the riskiest offer also the best opportunities, especially when you're young, you don't have much to lose, it doesn't feel like it, but just go for it. The other aspect is about taking decisions. Maybe because of my Italian origin, there is always a bit of, gut feel, instinct. Over time, and I must say Switzerland has taught me a lot about this. It's about how to counter this gut feel with checks and balances. And one good way I found is to surround myself with people who don't see it the same way I do, and discussing with them plans as a way to suddenly come with much better decisions.
Do you think that a lot of business leaders now, I mean, look, you've worked in the same company your entire career. Oftentimes, you see, executives come and go. Do you think that gives you sort of the and your company is one obviously with, strong family ownership. Do you think that's one of the keys to why Schindler is so successful, that focus on the long term rather than short term, meeting the next earnings quarter?
I'm convinced that's one reason. To your point about long tenures, I am definitely proud. I worked for this company 28 years. It's my life. My kids couldn't imagine, they are all young adults, of me working anywhere else. At the same time, I also see going back to what I said before, the blind spot. It's good to have long tenures, but you have to surround yourself with a few people that come from outside. That forces other dimensions. The question is, what is the percentage? In Schindler, I believe we're all proud, and we have a number of extraordinary colleagues here with me tonight.
I think they're over here. The Schindler table.
They're here, and I think it's about this incredible culture that then allows you to confront challenges like no other company. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.